Okay, so excited to be together today. And my name is Maureen Melonis, and I'm the Associate Director for the Center for Inclusive Design and Engineering. And we were formerly known as Assistive Technology Partners. So for people who haven't heard about our name change, we want to thank so much. We're here because of SWAC, our program supporting assistive technology and education in the schools in Colorado. And that's a project that's done in collaboration through the Colorado Department of Education. So we're just so thankful to CDE for their support in these kinds of activities. And we have a number of people who have registered for today, a little overwhelming, to be honest. It's clearly an important topic. But so we have several guests from out of state, as well as people from within Colorado within our SWAC team. So for our guests from out of state, just a little background, our Center for Inclusive Design and Engineering is in the University of Colorado Department of Bioengineering. And so we have 27 faculty and between 8 and 12 students, bachelor's, master's, and PhD students in engineering. So we kind of provide that human factors side of design for them, training in that respect for them. We were originally founded in 1989 through a grant from the Technology Related Assistance for Individuals with Disabilities Act, the TECH Act. And that was kind of the catalyst for where we are now in a much bigger program. And in 1998, we began our relationship with Colorado Department of Education. So that's been a number of years of working together. It's been a great partnership. So I also know there are a ton of SWAC members who are registered for today, and that's just so great. I'm just super thankful for everybody that's here. So welcome, everyone. Allison, we'll go to the next slide. I just want to give you a little introduction and background, just quickly, where this started. So in 2018, I presented at the Department of Education Transition Conference on assistive technology, and it's not necessarily, transition is definitely not an area that I'm an expert in, but they asked me to present. So I did a lot of research to prepare for that. And I found so many wonderful resources, many of them free. And so that was awesome. I was able to share that. And then after that, because of that, I was talking about it and super excited about it. And so I was invited to present that similar topic at Assistive Technology Industry Association, ATIA, in January in Orlando last year. So that was really great. And then, of course, that led to this. So lots of resources. As you may or may not recall, when you signed up for this, we had planned for it to be just a little conversation between, I really didn't think that many people would participate. So it was just going to be a kind of a very informal conversation about what's working and not working, and we could all unmute and talk. But we have over 130 registered. So that is clearly, if you have used Zoom much, you know that is not a good idea. So we're going to use the chat box. And as I mentioned, most of you I see are entering your name and enroll. That's fantastic. If you aren't sure how to get to the chat box, you can just use your mouse and roll over the bottom or top of your screen to see the menu. And you should see chat. You can also find the closed captioning down there as well if you need that. So anyway, this was going to be very informal, but just in the past couple of days, the registration has exploded. So I pivoted and took my content that I have and put it into a PowerPoint. But we are going to hopefully use the chat box and have you sharing resources there as well. And we can also use, if you use the raise hand feature, which is found under the participants tab, clicking on that, you'll see the raise hand down at the bottom. So feel free to raise your hand if you have something that you want to add verbally, if you want to speak, and we will have one of our moderators unmute you. Okay, so we've shifted and we're pivoting a bit, and I think we've all gotten really good at pivoting during COVID, and I'm guessing that I'm hoping that we're going to make this work. So thanks for your patience. I'm a little bit nervous about it, but I'm hopeful. So our plan is really to learn from each other and kind of enable change with our collaboration. So in the chat box, if you would, and Allison, you can go to the next slide. If you would type what what brought you here? Why do we have so many people who have registered for this? What are you hoping to learn? Or why are you here? And then as we are, as the chat box dies down, feel free to type things that are going well for you, resources that you found as I'm talking about things, or challenges that you see, questions that you have. And if you know the answers, feel free to type the answers. This is a very collaborative, collective group, and I'm hoping everybody can be contributing in that way. So any resources or ideas, we would love to see them. And so at the end of this training, since it was put together a little bit quickly, we are going to share all of the PowerPoint resources with people who have registered, and then we will also share the chat box. So any resources that are shared there, we'll be able to get those out to you. So hopefully that is all going to work out great. So we're going to kind of start with a story or two. I want to tell you about a couple of individuals that I've known. So Allison, next slide. And on the slide, I have a picture, two pictures. One is of, and these aren't the actual people. These are just pictures from the internet that represent them. But the people that I'm describing to you are actual people that I know. And so the picture of the two graduates on the step, there's a young adult male and female. And I know the male quite well, and we're going to call him Zach. And anyway, he has a disability, a learning disability, and has struggled over the years with reading and writing, and very smart kid. He is super charismatic and really great auditory memory. And so he's able to compensate amazingly well. But he definitely, as he got older, started to struggle more and more. I think he got into special ed in about third grade. And he had supports like additional time for testing or for assignments, and different accommodations that were made for him over the years. A little bit of technology, but honestly not a lot until he was a senior. And then he had access to a tablet and some software, but nothing that he got terribly attached to or was super competent in, I would say. Also, you should know that he never attended any of his IEP meetings. He was not interested in that at all. So he decided to go to college out of state. And as you can imagine, and he decided to not self-identify to the college that he had a history or that he had a disability. And so he registered for a full caseload. And as you can imagine, he started struggling. He had always had teachers or his mom or other people to remind him to turn in his homework, to do his homework, things like that. And so at college, of course, he didn't have that. And by Halloween, he was really struggling and knew that he was in trouble. So then he went to the Disability Services Office, and by then he was failing most of his classes, and they tried to help him, but he ended up dropping out at the end of his freshman year. And then the other person in this that I have on this slide is a young woman who's 14. Her name's Emily, and she's born with cerebral palsy. She has pretty significant disabilities and uses an augmentative communication device that she got when she was 9. She's been attending her IEPs since she was 10 or 11. She is a pretty strong advocate for herself. She knows her technology pretty well, and she's doing quite well. And she wants to go to college, and she wants to study journalism. So 2 individuals with disabilities, 2 different stories. And I'm sure you know kids like this, lots of kids like this. And there's a number of scenarios that can occur, a number of things. But what we're going to talk about, the resources I have for you, hopefully will help individuals like this be more successful in the long run. So we're going to talk a little bit about the research and what we know helps kids be successful or not in this whole transition process, particularly around assistive technology, and then some great free resources I can't wait to share. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So we kind of know Jack's story and what happened to him, but I do worry what happens to Emily. Like, what happens with her assistive technology? Does she keep it? Does she keep her wheelchair? Does she keep her AAC device when she leaves the school system? What if she needs an assessment for some other technologies after she's done with school? Once she transitions, who's going to charge her device and make sure it's working properly or add vocabulary for her? These are all questions that come up. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the answers. Some of it depends on the funding source and things like that. But we're going to talk about some resources. And then also, one of the things that I think is really important to keep in mind is we need to be asking these questions as early as possible so that we can brainstorm together as teams and come up with solutions. So first, I want to just give you a little background on research on specifically around assistive technology and transition, just a couple of quick slides here. So here's what we know. Carryover of assistive technology competencies, a competent assistive technology user in a school does not necessarily mean you're going to be a competent AT user in different environments. And you and I know this for ourselves, or at least I know this, when COVID started and we suddenly had to transition from doing our job in a school-based system or college in my case, or whatever environment you were in, to your home environment or somewhere else, if you're working in a different setting, then suddenly you had to figure out, how do I connect my computer to the network? How do I get to those folders? All those things that you knew your technology were quite competent, but in a new environment, things were different. And that's true for all of us. So it's just something that we need to think about in advance. We can teach skills that help kids be successful. So we can help them, we know some of the things that are important. And so that is all about planning and delivering quality AT services, and also teaching them about self-determination. There was a neat study that was done in 2008, so quite a few years ago, but they asked directors of disability services offices in Colorado, what are the things that they see students with disabilities struggle with as they come to college? And all the two top things by a landslide were that students are not aware of their strengths and challenges. And certainly that would be the case for my friend Jack. And then they lack the ability to advocate and navigate systems. Again, something that I saw definitely for him. So those are two things, well, really all five of these are things that we can think about early and start helping kids with. So I think that's helpful to know. And then the next slide is some research that came out of Texas. And in order for successful AT transition to adult settings to happen, it relies on these three things: independence in assistive technology skills. And that's pretty broad. That's learning, not just how to use our assistive technology, but things like how to manage it, how to find out, oh, the battery's running low. What do I do about that? Or this light is blinking. What does that mean? Self-determination skills. And if you're not able to do that for yourself, is there someone else who can help with that? And most colleges will not often allow parents to be that person. So it needs to be somebody that can be an advocate that can also be allowed into those settings. And then a plan for transition of AT are the three things that they found in their study are really the most important. Okay. So a little bit more about self-determination, particularly related to assistive technology. There's some research from Waymire and Field that found that when we sometimes, as we got into these fields because we want to help people, right? And so in the process of being well-meaning adults in our students' environment or our own children, I can speak of this as a parent, we often help maybe more than we should. And so by helping them, unfortunately, we're blocking those opportunities to build independence. And I think of Jack, like he was reminded on a regular basis to do his homework, to turn in his homework. And that's great. Like that helped him be successful in that environment. But as soon as he was away from those reminders, then in college, he had nobody that was giving him those reminders, and he didn't have the skill sets to be independent in that. So it's just important, I think, to keep in mind that sometimes in the process of help, we might be doing too much for kids, and we need to just keep that in mind. Certainly, we sometimes see that. Okay, so I'm going to go to this next slide, which is my probably my favorite. And I don't know how many of you have heard of this or seen this feel free to post in the chat box if you're aware of this resource, if you've used it. So we know quality indicators for assistive technology. I think most of our SWAC folks are familiar with that. If you're not, you should definitely look it up. It's a great resource. But as a spin-off to that, the Great Lakes ADA Center developed this quiet post-secondary extension, PS, quiet-ps.org. And this tool is amazing. It's all free. And I just can't, if you do nothing after you finish this training, please go look at this resource. So it has two components, the campus self-evaluation matrix and the student self-evaluation matrix. You don't have to sign up to use it, but I would encourage you to do that because then it saves your information. So the way this works is it was organized kind of in a grassroots effort, and they got participation, all kinds of participation in developing it. And they selected these different areas that were important, specific to assistive technology, specific to transition. And then they created this kind of matrix of questions to ask students or to ask in school environments of where are you at? And you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5 in all of these categories. There's 10 indicators, things like, are you aware of assistive technology? Your knowledge of legal rights, your disclosure of disability or accommodations, your self-advocacy skills, your communication. There's just so many categories. So 10 categories that they look at, and you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. And so it's used two ways. It's used to help students who are struggling so that they can manage their assistive technology as they transition to higher education settings, but it's also used in K-12 programs or even colleges to assist students in getting there. So you can create this free institutional account, and that allows you to keep results on multiple students. And then also it allows you to track student growth over time, and you can export anything from those matrices out into a comma delineated file, so you can put them into spreadsheets or data files, whatever you want to do with it. It is an amazing resource. And so if you complete, we'll go to the next, I'm just going to show you a little slide. The next slide is just a little sample of one of the questions, so you can see this range of 1 to 5. So this is the area of self-advocacy, category 4. And so the question is, the student knows about available assistive technology and takes responsibility for interactions with the Disability Services Office to acquire needed AT devices and services. So on a level 1, again, they are rating themselves on a level of 1 to 5. 1, I do not know about AT assistance that might be available to me, in a college setting, or you could think of it in terms of anywhere they might be going. 2, level 2, I might know about it, but I'm not prepared to request or talk about using AT. That's where Jack was. He knew they had disability resources offices, but he wasn't ready to go in there and talk to them about it. 3, I need significant assistance when I talk to disability services about AT devices and supports. 4, I know my AT needs and available supports, and I can sometimes take the lead to make sure that I have the accommodation I need. And 5, I know my AT needs and supports and consistently take responsibility to make sure I have the devices and services I need. So this range, right? And then so based on what the student fills out for each of these questions, it comes back and gives you this wonderful resource of, oh, so he's at a number 2. Here are some goals you might consider writing that'll help him get to a number 3. It spells it out all for you. It's just such a great resource. I can't tell you. And then it emails you the results. So just fantastic resource. I'd really encourage you to take a look at that. So we're going to take a stop right here at this next slide and just look at the chat box real quick. I'm going to ask Allison or Paige or Shalane, is there anything in particular I should be responding to?
Yeah, so actually not really responding, but I just want to shout out that Jerry made a pretty good comment here. He says, I think one of the biggest considerations is to start the discussion about post-school, at least during the IEP review that occurs when a student turns 14, rather than waiting until a student's junior or senior year. It's definitely a process for students and their families to have time to think about how things are changing, and for parents to start the process of seeing their child as becoming a young adult. Also, the transition from primarily academics-oriented goals to functional life skills, depending on the student's functioning levels, is an important consideration.
Oh my gosh, that's such a great point. And what I love about that tool that I just showed you is it kind of, if you look at that early, it does set you up to go, oh my gosh, we should start this right now. Like we should be starting this. We should be having kids attending their IEPs really young and learning how to advocate. Why do I use this assistive technology? What is it for? Those kinds of things that you can start teaching them at a really young age. And that tool gives you strategies on how to do that. So great point, Jerry. I love that. We really do have to start early. This takes time. And that's really super important. Wonderful. And I also was glancing back. I love what you guys are sharing about what you're hoping to get out of today. This is great. And I think hopefully for the most part, we're going to be covering a lot of it. Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about some other resources that are out there. I had said, I think in the description that I would talk a little bit about our state Tech Act programs. So every state, if Allison, if you want to go to the next slide, every state has a Tech Act program, every state and territory actually. So there's 56 of them. And in Colorado, that is housed in our office under our side umbrella. And each of those programs have a number of different resources around assistive technology that can be supportive to you. So in Colorado, a couple of resources that I want to draw your attention to are our AT funding sources and AT Finder. And you may have heard of these before, so that's okay. You can check out for a minute. I'll show you what they are on the next two slides, but before we go there, I just want to say also be sure you're looking at the Department of Education. I'm going to show you some resources later about that are on the Colorado Department of Education, but oh my gosh, so many of the great resources I found were on Department of Education websites for other states. So simply searching assistive technology and transition gets you a lot of great resources. Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, sorry, I mistyped that. DVR is also a great resource to be aware of, and inviting them to attend IEPs, even as young as, with kids that are younger, is a great idea. Also, assistive technology, there are assistive technology waivers, and insurance can help pay for assistive technology. Colleges are good resources. I would really encourage kids to be thinking about, as they're looking at colleges, contact the Disability Resource Office while you're still in high school and learn what they offer and what they don't and what their rules are, because they are very different from one college to another. And then there are disability organizations out there and lots of other resources. If you guys know of some resources that are great for assistive technology or transition, then feel free to type those, share those with each other in the chat box. So let me show you these two resources that we have for you. So on our side website, which will be linked in the notes when we send them to you, we have two resources, AT Funding Sources and AT Finder. So AT Funding Sources is exactly that. So if you're searching for assistive technology, particularly after kids leave the education system, there are just not as many resources for assistive technology out there. And so what we've done is done a very thorough research of all of the funding resources that are available in the state of Colorado primarily, although there are definitely some national resources in here too. There's over 2,000 different resources that are in here. And you basically, when you get to this page, you click on that search for funding tab at the top, and that'll take you to a second page that will have you fill out some questions, just some basic background information that we collect for our program. And then, and you can put as much or as little information in there. It does change your search results depending upon how much information you put in. So know that, like, you can put the age of the individual you're looking for, the diagnosis, the location that you're in, and then it will find all of the matches that fit for the information you've provided. So the more information you provide, the more you're narrowing your focus to something more specific. And so it will also then provide, if you there's a button there once you get that far, and it'll let you link to the actual applications, so that, and then it also gives you even some more detail about, hey, this particular foundation really prefers to fund things for kids with vision loss, things like that, little hints. Julia Beams, that works in our office, is just a goldmine of information. So if you ever have trouble with this site, she's the person we will send you to. But she is the one, we did a brain dump from her brain into this system, and it is just an incredible resource if you're ever looking for funding. And then the next slide is another resource that is provided through our Tech Act, and that's called AT Finder. So that is if you're looking for used assistive technology. And what this does is it goes out and searches different databases on the web. So it searches eBay and Craigslist and a couple of others. And again, you put in your information there and say how far you're willing to go, or what you're looking for. And it will look for people who are selling used assistive technology, or sometimes they're giving it away. I will say that the words that we use in that search field are either going to be a match with something out there or not. And so like if you put the word adapted van, it's not only going to find adapted, it's going to find a lot of vans. So be thoughtful about the words you use. And again, don't hesitate to call us. We'll help you do it and walk you through it. So a couple of resources we wanted you to know about. Okay, and then let's go to the next slide. Fantastic. So on our SWAC.org website, www.swac.org, and SWAC is 3 A's, there's under professional development, there's a whole tab called SWAC Foundations, and it has a lot of resources on assessment and implementation, but there's also a whole section on transition, and some of the resources that are there are just fantastic. I would really encourage you to take a look. So the Family Information Guide to Assistive Technology. This is a free book, a PDF book, pretty big book, that has everything from, and it's all related to assistive technology and transition. So it's all about how do we make a successful transition? What are the laws around assistive technology? And it's not just transition from high school. They do from birth to post-secondary settings. So all the different transitions that you might go through. There's a whole glossary of assistive technology terms. It's a great resource. So I would encourage you to look at that one. And then WADI, the Wisconsin Assistive Technology Initiative, also has a resource that they have two options there. One is for teachers and the other is for students. And they're essentially portfolios. So as you're starting with kids in that transition process, hopefully, like Jerry mentioned, younger is better, then you can start with these portfolios and start filling out information on transition and things that kids might want to start documenting and having available that they'll be needing in that transition process. And then on the next slide, some other resources that are also there. So I mentioned earlier in that first slide about Emily, what happens to her AT? Does she take it with her or not? So generally speaking, it depends on who pays for it. So a wheelchair, for instance, is typically paid for through insurance. So that is owned by the family and would go with her. But an augmentative communication device may have been purchased through the school. And in that case, it's owned by the school. But we have a wonderful cooperative agreement in Colorado between the Division of Voc Rehab and the Colorado Department of Education. I would encourage you to, on our SWAC website, follow that link and learn a little bit about that. It's not used as often as it should be, but it's an agreement between DVR and CDE about a transfer of equipment. So that equipment can move, that same technology that she's used to and knows where everything is, and it's already programmed and ready to go, can transition with her. And DVR and CDE can work together on that process. It's also in the DVR state manual, which I know is online. So you can find that document a couple different places, and our website has also information on how that was created. And then another thing that's on our website is a link to the AT and transition module that was created by Ocali, which is out of Oklahoma. Great website, by the way, just for AT in general. Their modules are fantastic. But when you get there, I don't have the link straight to the transition module because you can't you couldn't follow the link unless you register. You do have to give them your email, but they don't send much, so it's totally worth it. And then you get access to all of these free online modules. Seriously, so many really high quality assistive technology modules, everything you can think of, but there's a really good one there on assistive technology and transition. And it includes things like legal issues and self-determination, like how to help kids learn how to do that. Really, really well done, all free. And then that next resource is from the Georgia Department of Education. And what they did, so this was a collaboration, just like we have a collaboration with our Department of Education and our program. Their Department of Education also collaborates with their State Tech Act program. And so that resource there's a lot there. Actually, it's not just one resource. There's a lot of content there. They have a great presentation on that website with case studies. If you're going to do a training yourself, I would really encourage you to look at that. They just put a lot of time into it. It's very well done. And then the quality indicators for AT, the QUIET matrix, which is similar to that QUIET PS, but the original. They also have documents, a matrix on transition. This, as I said earlier, the PowerPoint will send out afterwards, because this link right here actually is, the PDF isn't working. So we'll put a new link in there that is, I have the right one. So anyway, those are some great resources. I'm wondering if you have favorite AT and transition resources that I haven't mentioned. And if you do, then please type them in the chat box. We'd love to hear about them. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. And not just AT, but there are some great transition, not AT, but just transition resources. So I would encourage you to visit the Department of Education, because they have, oh my gosh, so much there, incredible resources on the transition process. They have free recorded webinars. Even Jim Sandstrom from our office did one on assistive technology this fall that is posted there. And then they do monthly transition talks and regular office hours, fairly regular. So if you have a specific question around transition and you need support, you can just pop into office hours and get the support you need, particularly during COVID. And I'm wondering if people have any particular challenges during COVID and transition. I'm guessing it gets a lot more complicated for a number of you. And so that would be a great place to take questions like that. And certainly you can call our SWAC office too. Then LD Online, Learning Disabilities Online.org, is a nonprofit organization specific to learning disabilities, but they have a lot of incredible and free resources on transition, self-advocacy, college students. There's so much on that website. It's a little overwhelming. Like I did a search initially on their website for transition, and they had 2,000 matches. So a little overwhelming. You might narrow your search to transition and assistive technology if you go there. And then the next one is Rights Law, which is a nonprofit organization specializing in resources for parents and educators and advocates and attorneys, and it's just information about special education law, but they have a particular section on articles on AT and transition that are quite good too, if you're wanting more of a legal understanding. And then the Student Self-Advocacy Handbook is put out through the Access Project at Colorado State University. That project ended, their funding ended, but they are keeping this resource up to date because people still go there. It's quite good. It was done in a community partnership, and it was posted as a public resource. And so they're choosing to keep it up just because people love it. And we do appreciate that. So I see that Amy posted an Indiana transition resource matrix. That's fantastic. Thanks, Amy. This is great. I'm curious if you want to put in the chat box if there's any particular needs you have around COVID. Maybe we can brainstorm together some things that are working or not working. Would love to know more about that if you want to post in the chat box. Okay, and then the next slide So just kind of when I went through all this content and did a lot of research on it, I was trying to think, okay, what's my checklist? What are the things that I would be wanting to think about before, during, and after the transition? And so before the transition is happening, so this is early, right? We need to be exploring technology with kids as young as possible. So in Colorado, we can do that, of course, through the loan bank, through the SWAC, our SWAC assistive technology teams. We like to think about, okay, what is difficult for this individual? What are they struggling with? What challenge do they have? And then think about what technology solutions might be able to help them with that. Sometimes there's a tendency, if we don't know a lot about technology, to want to start with the technology. Hey, I found this cool thing, and I give it to, my niece or whatever, and say, you might try this, it might work for you. And really, that's not the ideal way. It's often that results in frustration and abandonment of the technology. We really want to start with what is the problem, and then find the technology that fits it. And I like to use the analogy as, if I was going to buy a car, but the only place I went was a Honda dealership, I'm going to end up with a Honda, and that might not be the right car for me. And so it's better to think of what is it I need in a car, and then I can look at the cars that are out there and find the right match. So think about that as you're matching technology for kids. And then identifying that technology and acquiring it. Sometimes we do need to talk to experts. Some technology is pretty sophisticated and really needs somebody who really understands it, the assessment process, and often requires, in that case, a trial of several different types of technology to make sure you find the one that works. And then building that into the IEP, making decisions with the IEP team so that the technology can be infused throughout the students' days and activities, and that really becomes a part of them in order for them to understand what it is and why they're using it. They need to be able to advocate for themselves. That's a huge problem for kids who are transitioning. Often they will go into the Disability Resource Center and say, I have a disability and I need technology, and they'll be asked to identify what that is and why they need it. And that seems like a really simple question, but you'd be surprised. I mean, I bet if you asked most of the students you work with, a lot of them are not able to tell you what their technology is exactly and why it's helping them. And those are two very important questions that they need to be able to answer themselves. So, or have an advocate that can answer for them. They need to learn how to use it. So that's not just how to use it in the environment. If it's a communication device, how do I communicate with it, but also how do I turn it on? How do I charge it? Those other levels of operation. And then they need to learn when, where, and how to use it best, because there are times when it's not appropriate or when it's not the best choice. And then during that transition process, it's so important to be documenting things, because these disability resource service offices will require some documentation. So having that all in one place is really helpful. Developing different supports and advocacy skills, also important, and just preparing. And that's why a lot of those resources I showed you are like the steps to get there, but creating this portfolio that a student could take with them as they do that. And then thinking about working with maybe DVR in the transfer of equipment, or other programs that might be willing to do a transfer as well, all during that transition process. And then even after transition, it's identifying, okay, what are the needs now? How have things changed? And what are the resources that are going to help us address those needs? And really teaching our students to speak up and ask for what they need to speak up for themselves. Sometimes that's a hard thing to do, but there are ways that you can teach that. And that first resource I showed you has some resources around that built into it. Let's see. Okay. So let's go back to our chat box. We have time now. That's kind of, we're kind of coming down to the resources that I was going to share, but I'm just curious, are there any challenges out there? What's difficult? I'm going to scan up as you're typing those things, and also feel free to answer other people's challenges and just see if we're getting to the questions. So Jennifer asked, she said she's been working with students online using switches that she's dropped off at their house, and she's looking for ideas on switch use. If anybody has ideas for Jennifer, you could type those into the chat box. And Jennifer, if you'd like, we can unmute you or feel free to unmute yourself and elaborate on that question if there's anything in particular that you're hoping to find.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. No, I don't think so. I don't think there's anything specific. It was more just what was I thinking when I signed up? And it's kind of that COVID thing. I think we're trying to be creative about working, because I'm working with students that are in the transition program. And I don't know, that's where that came from. It's kind of like now what we typically do isn't available to us. And so we're using technology, we're doing it at home, we're doing it online. And I don't know if anyone else is in this situation, but that's kind of where that came from.
Awesome. That is a great question. Does anybody have an answer that they'd like? I mean, I'm sure that a lot of you are struggling with that same challenge. Has anybody figured out anything to try or that she might consider? And I would say you can probably go ahead and unmute if you have an idea. And while you're thinking about that, or you can also respond directly to her request. If you just scroll up in your chat box, you'll see her at 306, her request, and you can reply right to that. Another person is looking for tools that are geared towards older students as far as specific assistive technology, it sounds like, and resources. So I would encourage you to look at our SWAAC.org website in the Alexandria Loan Bank. Anyone can go to SWAAC.org and under Loan Bank, search the different items that we have in our Loan Bank catalog. And you can search for products for higher ed, or you can certainly email us, and all of our email addresses are on that website too, and ask any specific questions. We love to do research for you. So we're happy to look into different AT products that might be solutions in that situation and just send you a list. And I would say too, the Georgia Tech website that I shared does have some nice, more specific AT ideas for older students. That would be the first one I would say I'd encourage you to look at, in addition to the Loan Bank.
We just have another question come in towards the bottom, Maureen. Sarah is asking if anyone knows of an app for a Chromebook that students can orally input reminders into, or a phone app, kind of like Siri, how you say, set a reminder for something.
So an app for Chromebook that students can orally input reminders into, or a phone app. Again, Sarah, if someone doesn't answer this, we will definitely do the research for you, and I'm confident that we can find a solution. Does anybody know offhand? And feel free to unmute if that's easier. So everyone wants that. Maybe we'll put it in the, when we, so after this training is over and I recover, we'll take all of the questions in the chat box and the resources that are provided there, and we'll put them with the handout and send them out to all of you. And then wherever there's a question that didn't get answered, we will do our homework and try and find the right solution for you and stick it in there as well, so everybody gets the answers. And I saw that Trudy Potts responded that they're in the same boat in terms of the COVID situation and with no real answers. I mean, this is tough stuff that definitely a challenging time for us.
Robin and Justina actually just mentioned trying Google Assistant. Possible.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. That's fantastic. And Robin, can you unmute and just say a little bit more about it?
Sure. Actually was just in the process of pasting a link in. It's not available on every Chromebook, so you would need to check and make sure that it works on your Chromebook. But it's similar to what you get through the like their smart home devices, where you can say, you know, hey Google, remind me at this time to do this. And they've been adding more of that support on the Chromebooks as well, that just let you say, you know, hey Google, open my calendar, open my email, start a new message to this person. There's a lot more voice control coming to Chromebooks with that tool.
Oh, thank you. What a great answer. That's fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, or just curious, are the resources that I shared, are they things that you have seen before, or particularly I'm wondering if that quiet PS, if people have been using that, or if that was new for them, because I had never seen it until I started doing this research, you know, a year and a half ago. Good to know. Fantastic. And so that, unless there are other questions, I guess we could finish a few minutes early, but feel free if you want to stay on, if you have other questions that you want us to answer, we're happy to do that. Or I'm just going to go to my last two slides here. So I guess the reason that, you know, we did this today are because of these students, right? There are so many students out there that it could be different for them. I am positive that it could be different for Jack and Emily, and that they could get the resources if we look at some of these tools that are out there and try them, that we could really make a difference for them in their future and in the whole transition process. So with that, I just want to really thank you all for your time. Thanks for registering. I'm super excited that there's such an interest in this, and that we had such a great turnout. And like I said, we'll be summarizing content for you. And if you have other questions, don't, you know, we're always here. And so feel free to email us or contact us, and we'll get you whatever resources we can. And stay safe. My goodness, it's a crazy time right now.